It's time now for Focus. We head today to Cameroon, which has suffered due to its position and its borders, the dual problems of dealing with the refugee crisis from the Central African Republic and, of course, that from neighboring Nigeria. Indeed, it shares 400 kilometers of border with Nigeria and has suffered as a result of Boko Haram's insurgency. The first attacks between jihadists and the Cameroonian army began in March 2014. Since then, the country has attempted to confront a complex web of ongoing problems at political, military and humanitarian levels. This report by Myriam, Sellam and Sonia, Mili.
Seni Bukar Lamine is the traditional chief and mayor of Kolofata, a Cameroonian city near the border with Nigeria. At 5:30 a.m. on July 27, 2014, he was jarred awake by the sound of gunfire.
C'était étonnant.
It was surprising. It was getting louder with different sounds. And just as I was wondering what was going on, I heard shouting, Allah Akbar. I understood that it was Boko Haram who was attacking us.
Les Boko Haram qui nous attaquaient.
The Islamists then entered the house and kidnapped the entire family except young Salih, who managed to hide. The family was taken by car to the Sambisa forest in neighboring Nigeria.
They separated us from the men and we were taken into some kind of huts. Inside were veiled women and children and the wife of the deputy prime minister.
Boko Haram did not select their hostages at random. They specifically targeted traditional leaders, figures who were either political authorities or spiritual leaders in this region of Cameroon. After 72 days of detention under harsh conditions, an agreement with Cameroonian authorities was finally reached.
They took us out of the vehicles and told us to move. Our jailers hid themselves in the wilderness. Others said they saw 5 or 6 people from behind, dressed very crudely. It is assumed that these were their guys. Later in the discussion, I was told that they had 60 people, but they had to settle for 5 or 6. We ended up on their side, and then later we told ourselves it was a dream.
The 27 hostages have been released, and the family has been reunited. Appointed by the head of state of Cameroon, Colonel Numa was charged with the safe repatriation of hostages. The kidnapping triggered a quick military response.
I had been officially asked to implement Operation Alpha. Initially, the operation was set to begin on August 1st, 2014. I remember being on a plane with some top officials. We were on our way to the northern city of Maroua. That was June 26, 2014. Well, the next day, I'm still with these top officials, and we're told that their families have just been kidnapped in Kolofata. So all of a sudden, we no longer have all those weeks to prepare the operation. We had to begin Operation Alpha immediately.
Operation Alpha is being conducted by members of the Rapid Intervention Brigade, a special force composed of elite soldiers that carry out patrol missions and surveillance.
At any time, we can stop to collect information, to inquire about the situation, and from one moment to another, we can take action. It's a patrol. That is what we do every day along the 400-kilometer border that we cover between Cameroon and Nigeria.
Members of the Rapid Intervention Brigade may be asked to perform specific operations in refugee camps like this one, Minowau, a camp of nearly 45,000 people. For the most part, these are Nigerians fleeing the atrocities of Boko Haram. Every day, there are new arrivals, including births. This little girl was born this morning. Thanks to the maternity ward set up within the camp 4 months ago, labor went smoothly.
I hope that God will take care of my baby, that she will be fine and grow up and go to school.
At Camp Minowau, almost 45 babies are born each month, adding to the total number of refugees. This is another consequence of the attacks by Boko Haram. Cameroon is facing a massive influx of displaced persons, most of whom are women.
Here, there is a lack of water. There is nothing to do, and it's difficult for women to take care of their children without soap and activities that provide a little bit of money.
It is estimated that some 80,000 people have fled Nigeria for Cameroon. adding to the nearly 250,000 refugees already taken in from the Central African Republic. Closer to home, many Cameroonians have also been displaced in a zone that seems to be bearing the brunt of regional crises.
Well, for more on the story, we can now speak to Louisa Lombard, who's an assistant professor of anthropology at Yale University and who joins us now. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Lombard, for being with us. Two separate problems. We'll move on to the refugee question in a moment. First of all, though, Cameroon has had to deal with a security crisis, as indeed have some of other Nigeria's other neighbours, because Boko Haram have been becoming increasingly active over the borders.
Yes, that's correct. And one of the challenges for Cameroon is that northern region that borders Nigeria includes spaces such as an enormous and largely unpoliced national park, making it relatively easy for them to cross those borders.
Of course, it brings a whole bunch of difficulties with it. We were just hearing in that report about events in Kolofata several months ago, followed not long afterwards accusations that Cameroon had been heavy-handed with accusations of human rights abuses. This is a very delicate issue to handle both effectively and humanely.
Yes, I think that's absolutely the case. And you know, as your reporter has pointed out, Cameroon is now facing hundreds of thousands of refugees living in the country. And for the most part, these refugees have been settled quite peacefully, I would say. And in the case of the hundreds of thousands of Central African refugees, some of them are even starting to go home at this point. But this is a massive influx in a country that already has some tensions, you know, especially over the succession of Bia and things like that.
So it is the figures are staggering when you consider the 85,000 Nigerian refugees we were just hearing about come on top of the nearly 250,000 refugees from the Central African Republic. In cases like that, what kind of extra help is a country like Cameroon given?
So Cameroon is given substantial help from the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which will be running these refugee camps for the most part and providing a lot of necessities for those refugees, such as food, housing, you know, all of these kinds of basic necessities like jerry cans and what have you, water, and these kinds of things. You know, I have done some research on the border in some of those refugee camps, the hosting Central Africans on the Cameroonian side. And I would like to say that it's noteworthy that there's been relatively little conflict. I mean, there are small disputes that arise, but there has been relatively little conflict around this resettling of huge numbers of refugees.
Now, if some of the Central African Republic's refugees begin to head home, the Nigerian refugees look like they'll be stuck for a fair deal longer. The fight against Boko Haram is nowhere near finished. In fact, it's only just begun.
Yes, I think that's absolutely the case. They will definitely be staying. I think they will be staying there for quite a bit longer. And it's a situation that we're going to have to keep watching because it's definitely evolving quite rapidly.
What is the likelihood, we saw this attack on Chad last week, what is the likelihood that Cameroon will be drawn further into the security crisis that's gripped Nigeria? What are the odds that Boko Haram will seek to cause trouble more in Cameroon than it has already? So far, we've seen the attack on Kolofata, but not a great deal else.
My guess is that yes, we will see more attacks in Cameroon in the months and you know, to come. Boko Haram has very little to lose, I think, by doing so. They might face some pressure from the Cameroonian army and so on, but the organization of the group and their ability to make these attacks and get a lot of press for doing so and gather strength by doing so remains pretty high.
Louisa Lombard, live there from New Haven, United States. Thank you very much indeed.